Now, you were aware of him before he won Junior Worlds and the Senior World Championships from your time in Japan. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, well, yeah. So I went to Japan for like more vacation, and some colleges kind of heard that I was in the country, and so I kept getting invites from all these different, clubs and colleges in Japan to train, but I wasn't really there to train. I wasn't like healthy. I hadn't trained in like 2 months, and I ended up going to Yamanashi Gakuin University because of my relationship with Takuto Otoguro and Keisuke Otoguro, who were Olympians, Olympic champ in 2021. That's the college they went to, so I went there to kind of see where they trained from my past experiences and my past relationship, and yeah, they kept asking me to wrestle and get in practice, and they had shoes and everything. It was just funny, so I ended up going into this practice, and I ended up wrestling with Ono, and I just remember thinking this kid's really athletic and really good, and I didn't know who he was. I never heard of him, and so it was just cool to see that in the next year he was, always a world champion in juniors, seniors, and I got to kind of get a feel for him before he kind of came onto the scene. So,
what did it in those moments when you're wrestling with him? What felt a little different about him, or is it anything you'd experienced before wrestling with other guys?
well, Japanese athletes, they're so fast. They're so I was so shocked with how explosive and fast he was. So that's what really got to me. He just felt so smooth.
Yeah.
So
The Japanese system and their development of wrestlers really was sort of front and center in the last year, basically, over the Olympics and the World Championships, the success they were having. As you were there in Japan, did you observe what were some of the major differences in how they train versus maybe how you've seen other training environments?
well, what's super interesting about the way they trained is, in America, you have one partner for the whole practice, and you just train with that partner, and a coach kind of runs the practice. Well, when I was in Japan, I witnessed 3 different practices. I even went to a judo practice, and it was the same for judo. Because obviously my parents'
Mm-hmm.
background in judo, I wanted to watch where my dad trained in Japan in the 80s. Tenry University, best university in the world for judo, and they all switch partners like every 3 minutes. You just switch and switch and switch and switch, and the coach doesn't really like show moves or coach. He just kind of barks at them. And there's like 2 captains that kind of run the practice, and they're the ones that do everything. And there's a big timer. It was in judo and in wrestling, all the practices. There's like a big timer, and like every 3 minutes you just switch partners. It doesn't matter. There's women, there's heavyweights. You just turn and there's a partner. You go and you wrestle them. Because I remember when I was in the practice, I wasn't supposed to wrestle, but I remember I was in there and I was like, every single time like the timer went off, like there was like 10 guys running at me. The first person they would go up to, they would say like Onegaishimasu, like please, like, and then you wrestle. And it didn't matter if it was a guy who was 75 or kilos or 74 kilos or a woman. I mean, I was just wrestling anybody. And so it was just like super interesting because like that's just not how it is in America. You have one partner. It's very structured most of the time. So it was just kind of all over the place.
Yeah, that mirrors like what I had heard as well about Japan. It's just like a ton of live. Does that surprise you that that's like a key element of their training? Obviously, they're learning amazing technique. It's not just live, but it seems like a higher proportion than maybe in America.
Yeah, it was like play and live. Like they worked into it, so it was interesting. I definitely like thought it was different, but I liked it. It was cool.
What other international training have you observed? Obviously, you've trained all over America, but have you ever spent time in Russia training or anywhere else other than Japan?
No, I haven't really. Every summer was more like recovery for me. I didn't really get to go travel or compete. As you guys know, last year was my first year
Yeah.
ever competing internationally. So since high school, so